Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Boone County Cryptids, where we chase the country's most chilling cryptid legends, one eerie encounter story at a time. Hey everybody, I just want to thank you for being here, and I hope everybody's doing good. Let's say some prayers for people that aren't doing very well, and I know there's a lot of people still going through the struggles from that ice storm and snowstorm we had not too long ago, all throughout the southeast and all over the country, really. Just want to say thank you to our service members and our first responders. You know, they go through a lot of stuff every day that they shouldn't have to keep our city safe and our homes safe. And just say a prayer for them, guys. They need it. So, guys, every once in a while, a legend is born. And I happen to have one backstage. Now, he won't say he's a legend, but he is one of the people that I look up to the most in this field. So all I got to say, guys, is Howse in the house.
Man, I don't know about no legend status.
Hey, brother, how are you?
Oh man, just getting by. Been a pretty tough winter this year, but hey, everybody's still here, I reckon.
That's the important part. Yeah, it's the older I get, the less I like wintertime. I used to be able to go gung ho ready for the wintertime, but my old bones just can't take it like they used to.
Man, I remember when the older people back when I was young. I remember the older people talking about how the cold hurt them. You know, man, they talk about just be wringing their hands or rubbing their elbows, and they'd be talking about how man, this cold's killing me. I thought, man, y'all just a bunch of wussies. Y'all can't take it. Well, guess what? I've said I'm sorry a bunch of times for ever thinking that, because
yes, sir.
It's tough. Get a little arthritis built up, and like me, I had that ankle replaced. Man, I got a big chunk of titanium for ankle now. That it doesn't like cold at all. It goes hurting bad. So
yeah. Does the weather warn you whenever it's coming nowadays? You're able to feel it in your bones?
Man, I can predict the weather better than any meteorologist out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like the cold and I don't like the hot anymore. I'd rather just have spring and fall and I'd be happy. But
yeah, that's we don't have very much spring or fall anymore. It just like goes from winter to summer.
That's the truth. Yeah.
But man, no.
It used to not be that way, but it seems like it is anymore.
Yeah, that's it, man. I don't know. You know what it is, man? It's that dang global warming. It's according to the government, that's just what wreaked havoc on everything.
Yeah.
You know, record cold. What happened? Global warming. It don't matter.
Yep.
But hey, I am old enough to realize that you can't believe everything you read, or that they go to spreading propaganda, because hey, I'm one of the guys that come up. I was born in '74, and before, when I was in kindergarten, we was doing all kind of drills at school, and I remember being a little kid and worried that acid rain was going to start melting cars and stuff.
Yeah, I remember hearing about.
It was everything. I think part of the plot is if we scare enough people, we'll convince them that we can save them, but they just got to throw enough money at the problem.
Yeah, and then nothing ever gets done.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yes, sir. I agree.
Well, what are we going to talk about?
Well, I was just thinking maybe you could kind of go through some of your, kind of start at the beginning where you started having some encounters, and then kind of go through when you've seen one for the first time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first off, man, I tell everybody, I'm just an old redneck country boy over here in Alabama, northwest Alabama. Grew up my whole life, man. I've spent lots of time in the woods. Good Lord. I mean, my daddy, he avid hunter, fisherman. He commercial fished. I grew up on a farm. We had the farm we had cows and goats, and we've had pigs and horses, and we had four commercial chicken houses. Man, I was doing all kind of farming, anything from cutting and baling hay to hauling hay. You name it, we done a little bit of all of it. Just and, I live. I mean, if I go outside right here, I can take a rock and flip it underhanded and hit national forest land. My land joins it. Big national forest. we spent a lot of time in the woods. I mean, we're avid hunters. Mainly deer and squirrels and rabbit hunted, and we quail hunted and dove hunted, and about anything that we knew of in the state of Alabama. Odds are, if it was legal to hunt, we hunted it.
Right.
Done a little bit of trapping. Had some cousins that did a lot of trapping. I just grew up in an outdoor family. Everything we done was outdoors. And I've hunted. I don't know. Well, the state of Alabama's got 67 counties, and I've probably hunted in at least 10 of them. Here across the state, different areas. Hunted a little bit out of state, not a lot, but I grew up in the woods, outdoors. I tell people I'm a gunaholic. But camping, hiking, you name it, we did it.
Right.
And I was one of the guys that everybody talks about. That's like, you got the opinion of, I've been in the woods. I've grew up in the woods. I've stayed in the woods. I ain't never seen anything. And I was one of them guys. I'd made that statement. Man, I've been in the woods my whole life. I ain't never seen nothing. I never heard nothing. Now, I'm not going to say that I didn't believe that they were probably real. It's just I didn't think there was nowhere in the world they was in Alabama. I thought, I grew up. I was of the age, you've seen the legend of Boggy Creek, and that's in Falk, Arkansas. Well, the mighty Mississippi is between me and them. The odds are they're on the other side of that river. I'm not worried about it. Pacific Northwest, Patterson, Gimlin. It's 2,000 something miles from here. That's up there. I got it. Those guys have got black bear and Kodiaks and grizzlies, or they got elk and moose. We ain't got that here. So hey, if there's a Bigfoot, that thing's probably up there. It's not down here where I'm at. And then it it ramps up, and then here I am at this point in my life going, I was so wrong. I was ignorant to the fact of what was around me. And after we got 2 and 2 together and got 4, we got to thinking about things that we had actually had happen. We just explained it away naively, I guess, over time. And it wasn't just me. It was me and my dad and a couple of my buddies and different ones. Once we kind of got in the know and figured out what we had been overlooking for so many years. But what got me started, man, my cousin, he owned a bunch of land in the county that I live in. They owned a lot of land, and they used to have a sawmill. They owned a big sawmill, or his dad started it back during the Depression, and they bought up a lot of land because the county that I live in, the land here, we jokingly say that it's not worth the crap. It's just land to hold good land together, because it's uphill, downhill, uphill, downhill. And it's a wonder most of our cows don't have like 2 legs that's longer than the other 2. That way they stand on the hill. But it's just up and down, and it's rugged and treacherous. But we stomp up and down through this stuff and hunt. We've got a lot of white-tailed deer. But what had happened was my cousin, he had a bunch of property, and some of the property I've hunted most of my life. But I knew that he had a 40-acre, I call it a small 40-acre tract. It was a small piece of property for what he had, but it was surrounded by national forest land. And we're talking about, this forest here is a big forest, but it does still have some private land that's scattered through it, and a good bit of private land. I mean, you have to really watch the map, and you got the main block, and then it branches out. And it's just chunks. It may be 300 acres, 400 acres. It may be 1,000, 1,200, 5,000, but it's just blocks of it. And it's still, mingled in through several towns here. And my cousin had that property, and I hit him up one day because I'd hunted a little bit down this road that it's on. And when you turn off the blacktop road, the asphalt road, there's just an old logging road that goes in probably 1.25 miles or so, maybe between 1.25 miles and 1.5 miles, and it dead ends at the lake. Well, the road doesn't get traveled very much, but it was still kind of maintained. It was drivable. And I knew that he had a 40-acre tract down there nearly at the end of this road. And I got to plotting and planning because, in the state of Alabama, and it's still not legal to put out bait on public land. Now you can get a feeding permit or a baiting permit now, and you can put out bait on private land. Well, back then, on the government land, I couldn't do green fields. I couldn't, do anything like that to draw the deer in. But I
Right.
knew he had that 40-acre tract down there, and I'm thinking, here's a few thousand acres, and he is one of the very only private landholders in this chunk of property that could be utilized, that I had access to. So I hit him up one day, and I talked with my dad about it. I said, look, he's got this land over there, and if I can get him to let me carry our bulldozer over there and clear up some of that old cutover, because it had all been clear cut. Now I'm talking about they had clear cut it down to nothing. And by this time, it had done been growing back just voluntarily. He didn't replant it. It was just a grown up jungle. Anybody that's in the Southeast knows what I'm talking about. If you just clear cut it and walk away and give it 6, 7, 8 years, that stuff will be 10, 12 feet high, and it will be like looking through this wall right here. You can't
Oh,
see arm's length. And it is an absolute jungle. Well, that's what I was dealing with. But now there was still, you could make out where the roads were, and what couple of, I say roads, it was more or less paths that it went in the property on kind of on the corner. It went into this square 40, and it went out about 200 yards. And what it was is it was a clearing that they had like bulldozed everything clean. And while the trees were still up, that was what we call a bedding ground. That's where they drag the logs up and then load the trailers and haul them out.
oh yeah.
Well, we took out that loading ground, and I made a green field. Just cleared it on up and got everything cleaned up. And originally, when I first done it, it made about an acre and a half green field. All right. That's up on top of a ridge. And where you went through the gate, it was about 200 yards, and the road kind of went out and then turned a little and went into this field. The road wasn't exactly straight, so you couldn't stand at the gate and see the field. You had to go out, and then it kind of turned a little. But at the gate, I could go out that road to my left, or I could immediately go to the right, and it fell off off the mountain, and it dropped down probably 200 feet elevation, and it done it within about 200 yards. It went down steep. Well, down there at the bottom, I found another little loading area, and I cleared it out and made probably between a half and 3/4 of an acre green field down there. So I had two fields on this 40 acres, one on this, say the corner up here, and one on the corner down here, so they were diagonal across. Man, we went in, and once I got it cleared, and I made a road. It was like a logging trail that kind of went all the way around this property, and 1/4 of a mile of this 40 acres was the boundary was the lake or the river, I guess you'd call it. So I got off the water in what timber? They left a buffer zone of timber, and I made a road through it. They couldn't cut it right down the lake on account of erosion. So I made a road through there with my dozer, nothing fancy, but I could drive my pickup and basically nearly circle this 40 acres. You go in the gate, go to the right, go down into the field, go through it, make a loop, come out into the field, and come back to the gate. Just made a big circle. Well, we got everything planted, and man, I was excited. We had a really good stand of grass and clover, and up till 10 days before season here back then, you couldn't legally bait, but you could put out supplemental feed. It just all had to be gone 10 days before you could hunt over it. So we were by the book. I mean, look, I'm law enforcement. I have to go
Right.
by the book. It's going to look really bad if I get caught, my buddy the game warden. I'm not going to put him in that predicament. I don't want my name tarnished. So we hunt 100% legal. We had everything up. All the supplemental feed was up probably 2 weeks before opening day. But man, if I had went in that field, either one of the fields, closed my eyes, pulled my hat off, and just flung it any direction, you could have spun me in a circle, took my hat, and threw it. When I went and picked it up, it'd be 3 to 4 deer tracks under my hat. I mean, it was trampled. Deer are eating the grass down. It's crazy, and we were absolutely excited about hunting. And we put in a lot of, or I did. I put in a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of money to get that land ready to hunt. and I'd put up two ladder tree stands, one on each field. Well, Dad and I went down there. It was opening day of bow season. We went down there. I climbed up in the stand, and I was in the lower field. Dad was in the upper field. Well, I'm up in the stand, and I hear. Well, I didn't see any deer. Let's back up a little bit. I didn't see a deer. I couldn't figure out. I thought, man, I don't know what's going on. I've got on cover scent. I come here plenty early. I'm not making no racket. I know how to kill deer. It's something ain't right. But yet I've not seen anything, and I'm just disgusted. Well, just a few minutes before it got dark, before I absolutely lost shooting light, I still had probably 10. We'll say 10 minutes shooting light left. Right straight out the end of that field, and it was about 80 yards. That field was about 80 yards long. I'm on the end away from the river, and he went through that field, and it was sloped just slightly toward the river, and then it got out there about 80 yards, and it was the end of the wood line, and then you went about another probably 10 or 15 yards, and it crowned over a hill in the hardwoods, and it went about probably 100, 120 feet to the bank of the lake. You would have been in the water. Well, out of the end of that field, I hear something, and it sounds like Babe Ruth is absolutely exploding a wooden baseball bat.
Oh, wow.
This thing hits a tree, and it's got such a crack to it, and it sounds like lumber is absolutely splintering. It sounds like you took like kiln dried 2x12s and they're slamming together, and that thing is popping, and it hit 3 times. It just is like boom. Like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, kaboom. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, kaboom. And I am like furious because I don't know what this moron's doing, but he is absolutely messing up my hunt, because anybody that deer hunts knows that right at dark is the prime time for deer to come out in the field. I've sat here all evening, for 3 or so hours, and I hadn't seen anything. So maybe they're going to come in right at dark, because deer, a lot of it has to do with the phase of the moon, whether they're going to come before dark or after dark. Well, I'm pretty upset. Matter of fact, I'm pissed completely off. And I'm thinking, in my mind, what I'm picturing is that somebody has figured out that we've put this work in on this property. It's probably somebody that's been hunting it for a while. Now they can't hunt it because we're in here. They were probably looking at it. They went in here and they're on private land. They're drawing the deer off the public land, and they're killing my deer. So I figured it was some idiot was in there trying to mess up my hunt. I thought they were doing it on purpose, messing my hunt up. Well, I'm pretty upset, which is, like I said, it's right at dark. And I know that this road, there's only one way to get in here. And they're down past the gates back up this way, and they're down here. So if I leave and go back out to my truck, whoever's down there's got to, when they go to leave, they got to come by me. That's the only way out. Yeah. So we're going to have us to come to Jesus meeting or a full-blown powwow at my truck. Well, I go ahead and climb down, walk the 200 plus yards up to the truck, get up there, and then Dad comes out, and he asked me, he said, "You see anything?" I said, "Nope." I said, "Did you?" He said, "I didn't see nothing," but he said, "I know you don't gonna see nothing." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "All that racket you was making down there." I said, "Dadgum, right time deer's gonna come out, you down there beating on something. What was you beating on?" I said, "I wasn't beating on nothing." I said, "Some moron is down here in the woods and went to beating on trees about the time that the deer should have been walking out in the field." He said, "Well, who is it, reckon?" I said, "I don't know, but I'm going to find out, because they got to come through here. It's the only way they can get in and out. The only other way, they're going to have to walk over a mile through the woods. The road goes down here. It went across another 40-acre tract, basically, so another quarter of a mile from where we were sitting to where it dead ended. The road actually dead ended at the lake." So we sat there a few minutes, and they said, "Well, you just going to keep waiting?" I said, "No, I sure ain't." I said, "If they going to wait and give me time to leave before they come out, we're just going to go down there and introduce ourselves." So I cranked up my 4-wheel drive. We go down the end of this road, drop off the mountain, and it's rough. It's washed out, big ruts. So we're crawling through it in the truck. and we hit the bottom. There's like a little campsite. There's nobody there. There's no vehicle. There's no nothing. Then he said, well, he said, how would they got in here? I said, I don't know. I don't know where they would have come from. I said, they'd had to walk over a mile. Why would you have walked over a mile when you could have drove this road and drove down here? It wouldn't have been no problem.
Exactly.
He said, well, that's the closest way to get to it. I mean, that would have been the very closest place to get to it. If you didn't use the road we were on, you would have been a minimum of a mile, if not a mile and a quarter to a mile and a half to get to that property. So I'm thinking there's no way some idiot would have parked somewhere way off and walked in there. Well, we turn around and drive out. Well, I can't put it together. It's like, it's not making any sense. Well, that first year, man, we had stuff like that. It was, you'd be in a stand, you'd hear stuff come walking and breaking limbs going through that thicket around you. And it sounded like, it was bipedal. And it was big because, it sounded like it was breaking limbs that big around. You'd hear a limb start cracking. It'd go, pow! And then it'd keep going. And you could hear it pushing through like the old honeysuckle vines and stuff and the briars. You could hear it like you could hear its legs like pushing them, and you could hear the vines stretching and popping. And they would whistle. Them things would whistle. We called it the super bird. That thing, it'd be a high pitched, monotone whistle. It wouldn't have a melody to it. It was just a solid, just a solid. But now look, I'm talking about horribly loud. I'm talking about hurt your ears loud. And I've had that whistle be within 25 yards of me or closer, and it'd be in that growed up thicket where I couldn't see 3 feet, but I could tell it's right there.
You're giving me goosebumps.
And then you could hear the thing walking. Dude, you could hear it 100, 150 yards coming. It'd come and it'd walk just out of sight of the stand, and it would go right on by. I've had them come in. I'd hear them walking bipedal, and they would move on pretty quick in the hardwoods. They would come out of the hardwoods into that cutover, and when they go through that thicket, they would slow down. But I don't mean like me or you would slow down, like where we'd have to have a machete apiece, and it'd take us 30 minutes to go 15 feet. Now, those things would go through that growed up thicket about like you or I would walk down an aisle in Walmart. It would just barely slow down. And dude, I've been in a tree stand, especially the upper field, because that up there was flat. And there was like 4 or 5 little old trees that the loggers didn't cut. Now they clear cut pretty much everything, but there at that bedding ground, they left a few little old trees. And when we first got these things was a little bit bigger than a paint can. So it was iffy on putting a ladder stand on it, but they held. I found one that would hold it, and we put a ladder stand on it. Well, around I had a few more little old trees that kind of block in that, and we put burlap around the shooting rail, so you had something. You wasn't just like a sore thumb if you did move your rifle. Every deer in the world was going to see you.
Right.
But dude, I've been in those stands, and it was like, this is like 15, 16 foot ladder stands. Now that's to your feet. So now this cutover was, like I said, it was just pancake flat up there, probably at least 5 acres. The upper part of this was just flat. But it had grown up, and all this stuff, it would be, best I can explain, think if you're looking across the top of a grown cornfield where everything is kind of like uniform height. Now, it wasn't like it mowed, but, most everything out there was about the same height. It was sticking up within reason. Dude, well, the top it's here. Well, my feet is actually above the tops of all this vegetation. And then, my head's on up above that. So I probably got, 6 feet, my eyes above looking over this stuff. So I can see, 200 or so yards to the big woods around the edge, like in this corner of this property. You can see out across it. Well, you can't hunt it because the deer's down here, 3 foot tall, and the vegetation is 10 or 11. But I can see the tops of this stuff. I've had these things come in that cutover. You could hear them in the hardwoods coming, and it was bipedal cadence, walking. And if things would come and they'd come into that cutover, and not only could I hear the vines pulling, the briars like snagging and breaking. You could hear leaves crunching. You could hear small limbs breaking. You could hear big limbs breaking, saplings popping. But as I'm hearing that, like over here, I'm hearing where it's at. I'm zoned in. My ears are telling me it's right there. I could look at the top of all that vegetation, and I could watch pine saplings where they were sticking up. That sapling, the whole sapling would lean over.
Wow.
And then it would whoop back and be like this. And I've seen them where they'd be close. I've seen them push apart, like something was shoving them like that and stepping through. And I've seen them spring back up. Now we're talking about pine trees that was probably that big, and it was just like it was just shoving its way through that. It wouldn't slow down. That thing would go through that cutover like it wasn't there. And that. But the first year was stuff like that. Mainly the first year was whoops and tree knocks and whistles and whoop. When I say whoop, these things like if you were to say WHOOP, long and loud as you could do it, and I'm talking about it would whoop. And man, I'm talking. I've had these things within 20, 25 feet of me whoop, and it would hurt your ears when it did. I've had them walk so close to my stand, it was like they should. I'm going to see it. I'm going to see it. I'm going to see it. But it's just like this wall right here. I mean, I'm in the living room. If I can't see, but 2 feet right here,
Yeah.
that thing could be 4 feet right there. You can't see it. Now you could hear it. I mean, you could be in that bedroom right there making all kind of racket, but I can't see through this wall. But now, if I heard you in there and I heard you open a drawer on the nightstand, I know what opening a drawer on the nightstand sounds like. That's just like when I would hear the vine dripping, when I'd hear the bipedal walking. I knew what it sounded like. I can tell you most of the time, probably, like if they did break a limb, whether it come off of a pine tree or if it was a hardwood, you can tell a massive difference when they break. If you're in the woods enough, you know what different things sound like. Just like if you were in there and if you slid the bed over, I'd know the difference between you opening the nightstand or if you slid the nightstand or if you slid the bed. You're going to know what certain sounds. When you're old enough, you know what things sound like. And there was nothing belligerent for the first year. It was just like, I think they were maybe more curious on what we were doing. But by the second year, it got a little worse. And we kept having encounters, and I mean a lot of encounters. And it was, like I said, the whoops again, the tree knocks, the limb breaks, but they started following us. Second, third year, they got worse. And it's like every year it would be, they'd add a little something else to what they were doing. And I mean, time we got several years in it, it was being bluff charged. It was them throwing shit at us. And it was like they were every year. I mean, it kind of felt to me like maybe it gave them false hope when deer season went out, in the first part, or actually it stayed in until the end of January. So by February 1st, we really didn't go to the property at all. I had no reason to go over there until about September. I'd go over in September. We'd bush hog the fields, clean the roads. We'd disc it, plant it. We'd go away. And then when October 15th, when bow season come in, then we were there pretty regular. And, from October 15th till the end of January, we were there a pretty good bit. But then we'd leave, and then here we'd come back. We'd done that for several years. And it was just like, I don't know if it gave them false hope, like, well, hell, we ran them off. They're done. And then October come, or September, where we was planting, it's like, well, here the buttholes are. They've come back. Well, like Leroy, what'd you do to them last year? Well, man, I threw a bunch of shit at them. They didn't leave. Well, what else you do? Well, I whooped at them. I growled at them. I huffed at them. We screamed, roared. We've acted stupid, and they're still here. Well, we may have to increase the bluff charging. And I mean, dude, it just every year it just got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And to the point they got to stealing. They would steal deer. One buck in particular, I shot that deer. I was in the upper stand. I shot that deer. He was about 175 yards down that field. I made the field a little bit bigger. And I look up. I always set the stand had a shooting rail on it. It was about this high. And I'd lay the forearm of my rifle on it, and I'd lay the buttstock on my leg right here. So the rifle was angled up like that. When you're deer hunting like that and you're in a stand, I was exposed from, say, here up.
Right.
You're not up there turning and looking. All you're doing is cutting your eyes. You look over here and you slowly look over there and you're looking all over, but you're not moving your head. I had just looked that whole field all the way around, and I looked down, I looked back up. About the time I did, there's this antlered buck with a pretty good set of horns, and he's like probably 3 deer lengths out in the field, and he's about 175 yards, and he come in from the right side the way I'm looking, and this deer's got his head down. Well, I mean, it's almost like a game of whack-a-mole, like he's just sprung up out of the woods, and look, there he is. So I just ease my rifle up, and I just lean over like that, and I prop up, and I look. Well, I'm getting the side profile of his horns, and I thought, yeah, he's a shooter, because I could see, 3 horns on this side, and I'm thinking if he's got a brow tine, which is an eye guard, he's a pretty good 8.
Oh yeah.
Well, I just flipped the safety off on that Browning rifle, and when I pulled the trigger on it, this deer looked like you hit him with a train car. I mean, it like barrel rolls him, and it spins him. Well, he hit something, he kind of like the son of a gun like hit, and it spun him and flipped. And he winds up, his top of his back is facing me, and his head is going the opposite way than he was just standing. Well, I just pulled my head up over the scope, and I'm watching him. And by the time I dropped back in the scope, because I seen him kick, he rolls over on his belly. And I thought, well, if he gets up, I'm going to go ahead and shoot him again. And I'm just, my finger's straight. Well, that son of a gun's back leg, now his chest doesn't rise. His back legs like picks his butt up, and he like drops and then jumps. Dude, by the time you could blink your eye, this deer went from out in the field about probably 10, 12 feet, and he's gone. I didn't have time to shoot him.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, he's hit hard. I'm going to give him a minute. I sit there, get me a cigarette, light it. I thought, well, I'll sit here. It's going to take me about 5 minutes, 10. We're going to let him bleed out. I'll go down there and see what I got. I'll sit there in the stand. Finally, get my rifle, lower it down. Walk out there. I'm just taking my time. I'm finishing up a cigarette, walk out there. Dude, I got probably 25, 30 feet from where this deer was at. Now, this is a grown-up thicket. And where the deer will come through that thicket, it's like they eat out tunnels. It'll be where they eat all the vegetation, and they'll make a trail, and it's absolutely like a tunnel. And, it's like probably a little over belly button high on me or a little higher, and it's just like an archway. Well, I look out in this grass in the field, and there's chunks of not lung, well, there is lung blood, but I'm talking about chunks of tissue, like actual pieces of lung big as my finger, splattered out through there. And I know when I see this bright, super pink, foamy blood that, yes, that's dead. He ain't going far. Well, I walked to it, looked, and it looks like you took a mop, stuck it in a bucket of blood, and just drug it across the grass. And even at the edge of the field where I had bush hog, I couldn't, because the limbs had grown out from year to year. You have to kind of keep scooting out with the tractor, so it left some sage grass, and it was like a little line of sage grass about this wide that's up, waist high, brown sage grass at the edge of the field. So you got green grass, sage grass, and then the thicket. Well, I look at that, and where that deer had shot across that sage grass, it looks like you took pink paint and just sprayed it this wide. Just
dang.
I'm like, this deer's, hey, I don't know how he moved out of the tracks. I don't know how he kicked. I don't know how he did anything. Well, I walked straight to it, 10, 12 feet. I like lean down and I look up in the archway hole up in that thicket. Well, over there, probably 20, 25 feet. Here's this buck deer. He's laying on his side in that it's near like a hallway when you go in there, because it ain't as much green vegetation. Is still thick, but you can kind of see once you're up in it. Well, this deer's laying there, and he's not moving. He's not doing anything. So I have to step over the bloody sage grass, and then I kind of duck walk And once I go in there about, I don't know, 5 or 6 feet or so, I can kind of stand up and I can walk to him. But it's narrow. I walk up there to this deer, walk up behind him, got my rifle pointed down, and take my boot and kick him, make sure he's not playing dead, because they will do that on you. But this deer just jiggles. Well, I step, my left foot, like between his legs, are facing to my left. I step by his belly, and I reach over and I grab his horns. Well, where he fell, his horns, one side had stuck under the pine straw and the leaves. So I just grab his head and I pick it up. And I've got this deer curled up like this, looking at his head. He was a really, really good 6-point, about 18 inches wide. Now he was a good deer. But this deer, instead of having the brow tines, it just had these little bitty knots. They just didn't develop. So instead of being a really good 8, he was a really good 6-point, which, kind of crushed my heart, but I was still tickled. He was a fine deer, and he'd be on the wall right here with the rest of these set horns.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, this deer's tongue is hanging out that far, and it's just laying out. The deer's not breathing. He's not moving. His eyes are open. He is dead. I'm talking about totally dead, piled up, and then it's a thicket, grown up mess. Well, I thought, I'll go get my truck. I got to go get my truck. I can pull him out. This was many years before I got really old and broke down. And, I was a pretty stout dude. I'm 6'1", and at that time I was probably 275, 280 pound dude. I worked for a living. So this deer is probably, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
All right. This deer is probably 175, 180 pound buck. I go back out in the field. Walk across the field about 30 yards, the side, across the width of it. And I got to walk about 200 yards on out to my truck and then open a gate. From the time I left that deer till I walked out, opened the gate, drove my truck back, it's a stretch to say that it took 15 minutes. A stretch to say 15. I figure more like 10. It wasn't long. I leave that buck laying there, drive my truck back into the field and back up exactly where that buck was at, where he was at, drop the tailgate, and I'm standing in this pink blood when I drop the tailgate. I step over to the sage grass, and when I go to step over and duck down to go in there, I look, my eyes cut up and look. That buck that was just laying there ain't there no more. There's no drag. There's no drag. Now look, if you'd have drug a deer in this on all that pine straw and them leaves, yeah, no, that stuff would have been slid and bloodied and everything else. They wasn't a drop of blood. They wasn't nothing that I could find. It was like a thing just evaporated. And all I can tell you, after I've had that happen, pretty much nearly exact same circumstances, other than the way he was laying in that thicket. Dude, we've had 6 deer that, I don't mean that we had one heck of a blood trail and we just didn't find it, and I'm just going to say that Booger Man come got it. No. I'm talking about deer that we shot, we went to, we either drug them around, we left to go get a vehicle to load them, whatever. We laid hands on them. I'm not walked up, they're dead. They're not breathing, they're not moving, they're not nothing. Kick them, they ain't doing nothing. You leave those deer and come back 10, 15, 20 minutes later, and they're not there no more. And we're talking about the only way that a person could have got in there, it was one way in, one way out, unless you walk for a mile and a half to get there through the woods. So it's like, no, that's, but dude,
Yeah.
I had, me trying to keep all this short, because we could be here for 2 or 3 days, me talking about encounters. I kept trying to figure out what we was dealing with. I had no clue. I thought it was just some butthole dude that was wreaking misery on me to start with. But now the time that they started stealing the deer, I'd done pretty much figured out what it was. But just being harassed while we was in there hunting, couldn't figure it out, and it just got worse. And then we got to hearing the things screaming with the whoops, and we done put it together that wasn't people. And I finally told my dad, I said, I think we're dealing with Bigfoot. He's like, what? I said, Daddy, I mean, I keep reading. I said, I've tried to find out, I've rented some, or went to the library and got some books, checked out some books. And I said, this we're talking about in 2000, 2001, 2, 3, somewhere in there. The internet wasn't no thing, especially for an old country boy like me, even having a computer. I mean, that wasn't an option. Smartphones wasn't around. So, I was just at just sheer blind luck finding out anything I could find out. But one thing that kicked it in was really close to where that was. Like, matter of fact, within the road that goes in there to where we had most of these encounters, a guy that we went to church with had a sighting. He saw one cross the highway. And where he saw it cross would be within 300 yards of the road that he was on, the paved road. And from where he saw it, you go 300 yards, that's where the road turned, the Forest Service road that went into where we were hunting. And then we got to hearing other people, and it kind of got out that people had seen things. And then more people came out. Now, it wasn't like they was running ads in the paper, but you had to be kind of in the know. And I've had people that had encounters that I absolutely hounded them, because they'd have one of their good friends would be like, look, dude, you need to talk to so-and-so. I'm like, why? Well, they seen the same thing y'all have, or they've dealt with the same thing y'all have, and they've seen them. And I'd go talk to them, and they'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. And I had one guy that I hounded him for the better part of 3 years. And then finally, he's like, look, damn it. He said, man, I don't want people to make fun of me. I said, dude, I'm the last person on the planet going to make fun of you. I said, so what happened? And he told me. And this old boy had one hell of an encounter. Matter of fact, this old boy shot one. And he shot it with turkey load, shot it 5 times. And I said, yeah, I would have been concerned too. I said, what'd it do? He said, that thing whirled and took off running, screaming. So, yeah. And that happened, going to be about 1.25 miles from where I'm sitting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are we getting an echo on your end, Greg? I keep hearing an echo.
I'm not hearing it.
For some reason, I'm hearing it on my end. I don't know why. We'll just disregard it.
But anyway, maybe it ain't echoing too bad. But dude, I tell people, I was the old country saying I was lost as Moody's goose. I didn't really know what I was dealing with, and every time I try to convince myself that's what I was dealing with, I'd think I was stupid, think I was crazy. And the one thing for me was me and my dad and my buddy Alan that passed away in 25, in July of 25. Alan hunted with me and Dad a lot, and Al had a lot of encounters with these things.
I'm sorry to hear about that, by the way.
Yeah, man. And see, Alan, he had a lot of struggle with. He finally did lay eyes on one. Was right here. Matter of fact, the door right there to this man cave is about 18 feet from where I'm sitting, and he was on the other side of that door trying to unlock the door to come in. And that thing had walked up within about 24 feet of it and was sitting there, or not sitting, but standing there behind my 500-gallon propane tank with his hands on it, leaning over, growling at Alan while he's trying to open the door and get inside. Yeah.
Dang it, you're giving me all sorts of goosebumps tonight, Greg.
Dude, Alan had, man, it bothered him really bad. I mean, he had that encounter about 18 months before he died. And he and I talked about it. Nearly every time we talked, it would come up, and he said, he'd just go over in his head, just talking about what it looked like, how it sounded. And dude, he struggled with nightmares even right up till he died from that encounter. And that was, he was standing on my porch right here. When I finally did see the first one, dude, it was like a weight off my chest, because I was 9 years deep into this mess before I ever saw one. Now, look, I'd had hundreds of encounters. I mean, what people count an encounter of, tree knocks, whoops, whistles, stuff thrown, what I could sit here and name 300 things that they'll do. I've heard them laughing. I've heard them giggling. It's crazy. I've heard them playing in water. They'll play in water like kids. I'm talking about be 20 degrees. Be 20 degrees. You're in the middle of damn nowhere, and it sounds like two children playing in water. Yes, sir. It sounds just like kids playing. And
Man.
you'll hear them mumbling. You'll hear them mumbling. I mean, I've heard two of them have it down at least a 7 or 8 minute conversation. Sound like they was pissed at each other.
Now,
But I was.
did it sound like the the chatter?
Sierra
Like,
Sound?
yeah.
Well, yeah and no. What I heard was, yeah, kind of like the Sierra sounds, but it was a good bit different. It sounded like me and my wife, if we were Chinese, Japanese, and Russian all blended up together, because we've been married 29 and a half glorious, miserable years, and a lot of times we don't even like each other no more. So you know how that is.
Oh
But
yeah.
anyway, but I heard these things walk in, and I heard them go to communicating, and it's a long story, so I'll keep it short to this. Um, they would get stuck on a syllable, and I tell people it's really hard for me to explain what it was like or what it sounds like, and I do a horrible impersonation of it. But honest to God, and I tell people the best I explain it, and I love Chinese food. I love Chinese people. Their culture is awesome. But by God, when they talk, it sounds like they're about ready to cut somebody's throat. I mean, it's just, it's quick, it's choppy, it's loud. And, for an old redneck, which that's probably what they think about me. But, dude, what I heard, the first one came in and it was digging. I heard it pull a log loose from the ground and toss it. And the log wound up being probably 20-something inches thick and about 20-something feet long. And I heard it pick it up and throw it and roll it down the hill and hit a tree. And then I could hear it sound like it was raking the loose dirt where the log was. And I could hear it sound like it was splashing the dirt out on the leaves. And the only thing I could come up with it was looking for something to eat. It was catching bugs or grubs or whatever. But it flat tossed that log down the hill. All right. It had been down there for several minutes, raking in the dirt and digging or doing whatever the hell it was doing. And I heard the second one coming, walking through the hardwoods, and it was coming toward that one. And it went exactly to it. And we're talking about, I'm about 100 feet, 100 feet or less from these two things. Go out the end of the green field, and we're crowned over that hill to the river. They were just over the crown of that hill, to the point I was sitting on I'd made a improvised deer blind, because there was a buck coming out on that end of the field that I couldn't shoot with a bow or crossbow even from the far end of the field. So I'm scooted down here, and I'm not where I'm supposed to be. Full camo, face and mask, whole 9 yards, brushed into this old treetop that had fell out because the tree got hit by lightning. And I'm sitting on a little short stool, and I've cleaned out every leaf around me a spot, man, big as a recliner, so I can move on this soft soil, which the soft soil, you get that smell of the soil. It's covering up your scent and this and that. A lot of advantages to cleaning it. All right. Well, I'm sitting leaning against this white oak tree. That first one came in, and it's just out of sight. It did a bunch of stuff before it went down there. But anyway, it's down there. It's raking through that soil while I hear the other one coming. And so help me, it walked exactly to where that one was, where I'm hearing that thing raking in the leaves. I'm hearing it walking, going to that one. And then when it got over, it got quiet for just a second. And then these things in my mind, it sounded like they should have been just like in each other's face, like kind of like watch a MLB baseball game where the team manager and the umpires just screaming in each other's face. That's about what these things should look like, because it would be a lot deeper voice. And then they were still both deep, but one of them was a lot deeper than the other one. But dude, they would get stuck on a syllable, and it would be like, oi, winya, hanya, ho, hi, oi, hey, oi, ya. And then it would be, as soon as that one quit, it wouldn't like give this other one time to like start back up, because it would be this one, and it would just be like a short pause, and then it was a whole nother voice. And when that one quit, this other one was like right back. It's like, no, 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 no. And dude, this rocks on and it just keeps going and it just keeps going and it just keeps going and going and going. Then they'd get quiet for just a minute and then they'd go right back. And I'm like, my God. Well, dude, I'm sitting on this little old stool and I'm talking about, look, I would have crapped more bricks than a mason could lay in 3 days. I'm talking about, look, dude, I'm about to die. I'm like,
Yeah.
this old boy's got to get out of here. I'm a little over 200 yards from my truck up this mountain. I've got to be somewhere besides right here because this ain't good. Because I know 100% there's 2 of them, and they're right there. They're
Look
both.
at the time. It's time to get out of here.
Yes, sir. Yeah. We need to RUN and OFT. And
Exactly.
but dude, I'm sitting there listening to this, and in my head, I'm devising every plan I can think of that possibly Greg ain't gonna get my head popped off like somebody squishing a grape, or get dismembered, or just basically be in the next chapter in one of Pilatus's 411 books. When I'm in the woods, I've got a Smith & Wesson 686 combat revolvers, 357 Magnum, holds 7 rounds. If I'm in the woods, that thing's on me, and I wear it in a shoulder holster right here. All right, I've got plenty of extra ammo. I got pouches over here, hold extra speed loaders. Now look, this was bow season. I had a crossbow. Now this over here is for self-protection. This crossbow is to collect game, to hunt with. All right, I'm 100% legal. At this point, after these things has done been blah, 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 back and forth, I've got my crossbow slid over into my left hand holding the forearm. I've decided I've got to get out of here. And I have eased ever so gently and stood to my weight is on my feet. Now I am almost like duck walking, so I'm crouched as low as I can be, because I am deathly afraid that if I stand completely upright, that I'm going to be able to see over this hump, like where it goes on out through the woods and it crowns over down to the river. They're just over the edge. And I'm petrified that if I stand up, I'm either going to see them, and if I can see them, that means they can see me. And I'm not supposed to be there. They're not going to be so happy. And I don't know what the hell they're going to do if they look over and go, hey, there he is.
Yeah.
They over there, in my mind, they over there eating worms. They hungry. I got a lot of, look here. I got some juiciness. No. This is self-preservation.
Oh yeah.
This is fight or flight, and I'd rather not fight. Now, I'm going to fight as quiet and quickly as I can, but we're going to be prepared to fight if we got to. Because look, I'm an old redneck boy down here in Alabama. I refuse to be a damn victim.
Yep.
Ain't happy. That is not something that I want to be as a victim. I don't want to have to shoot one of these things. I do not want to, because I can't see it anything except going really bad, horribly bad. But now, there again, I'm not going to stand there and be armed and be pulled apart. Now, if I'm going out, I'm going to take one of them with me. It's a lose-lose situation. But, it was a bad deal. Anyway, I have got my weight on my feet. I've got this crossbow by the forearm. And in my head, this is how my brain works. I've done pulled this pistol out. And it's to the point, if I've got to take an accurate shot, I'm not going to be shooting double action. Now, look, I've got a lot of firearms training. I can handle myself with a gun about as good as anybody you're going to find. I am so worried that this is going to happen so fast. I have done back the hammer and thumb cocked this revolver. And I know I've got it pulled up tight, pointing away. I've got the crossbow over here out of the way. And I'm watching and trying to watch where I'm stepping, and I'm cutting my eyes back and forth, and staying crouched. And I've done thumb cocked this thing. That way, it's going to be, we're talking about a 2.1 pound trigger pull for it to go off. If I've got to go to work, I can do it in a hurry. I am creeping and sneaking and creeping and sneaking, and I'd stop and I'd listen. I'd creep and sneak. I get out of that blind. I ease out because I had it open kind of on this side, and I had raked the leaves and made me a little path where it was just bare dirt about, say, 8 or 10 feet into the green grass in the field. Dude, I didn't crunch. A fire ant would have made more noise than I had made coming out through there. Now I'm talking about, we're talking about redneck ninja. I come out into that grass, and the thing that's starting to worry me now is when I get into the grass, is the field goes away. They're down here, and where the field's coming, it ain't flat. It starts going up a slight slope. And then when it gets to the edge of the field where the road is, it turns and goes up pretty steep. And I am asking myself, how far am I going to go before I'm rose enough in elevation that they're going to see me? Well, the way the road come in, it kind of come in this corner, and there was a bunch of like old growed up. The hardwoods actually come up on this one side. So I had to, instead of just going straight across that road, I actually cut more across the field and got closer to that wood line. So as it kept going up, I was kind of going around to get some trees and limbs between me and them. And dude, I wasn't looking back. I'd stop, and I could still hear them down there. And I thought, well, they hadn't seen me. Now, if they'd got totally quiet, it would have been bad, because I'd been like, whoop, they've seen me, so they've hushed. But y'all, I went halfway up that hill, and I could still hear them down there. Just, I call it ratchet jawing. It was just back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. Now, they would stop, and I could still hear them like digging in the leaves and stuff. But it was unreal hearing what I heard. I've told people, I said, look, Sierra Sounds is great. It's wonderful. You know, Ron Morey captured something it's a dream of people. But I promise you, when you're down there in the deep dark woods by yourself, and you're sitting there on the ground, and you hear two of these things conversing, and they're less than 100 feet from where you're at, I'll promise you, you'll want to be somewhere different.
Yeah.
And look, this ain't, and I tell people, I said, even like hearing, it's another thing with like hearing what Ron recorded, the Sierra Sounds. I don't care what it is you record. You're not going to record any of that and do it justice to what it actually sounds like in person. It can't be done.
You're right.
You can't, and you can't. You can't explain it to people, and you can play them all the recordings you want to, and it's nothing like being there in person. But man, I mean, it's just been it's been one heck of a ride dealing with these things. Man, it was 2009, January 29th, 2009, 11:30 in the morning when I saw the first one I ever could lay eyes on and actually see it. I mean, and it was like a weight off my chest. And I realized that I wasn't crazy, and all this stuff that I'd put together, it was like, I was trying to solve a riddle or a puzzle that I'd been working on for about 9 years. And then poof, there it was. There you are. I see you. I was right. And dude, it was like an awakening. I mean, it was just, I had both hands on the steering wheel, and I'd done slid myself up, nearly touching the steering wheel as close as I could get to the windshield. And I was screaming top of my lungs, me by myself in this truck now, going down the road probably 40 or so mile an hour. And I'm screaming at the windshield. And what I'm screaming is, I see you, son of a bitch, I see you. And I was screaming it over and over and over and over. Because these things had been doing nothing. They was hiding. They'd come in and torment us. They wouldn't show themselves. They would not, that at all costs, they would not show themselves. And I finally seen one, and I don't know why it crossed the road when it did. I've got no clue. But man, that was unbelievable. And what I witnessed right there, I still can't make sense of. For something that big to move like I watched that thing cross that road, you can't put it in words. There's no words. I watched something that shouldn't be real. It was jet black. I'm talking about the blackest black you've ever seen. It was like ink. that thing stepped out of the pine thicket on my right. It was on the same side of the road I was going down. I was going south. It come out on the right side, and the road goes down. It makes a pretty good sharp curve to the left. Well, there's this road that I'm on is going straight, and there's a paved road that comes in that intersects from the right side. Well, then you pass it, and it goes probably 40 yards, and it makes this big turn. Well, the road surface is up here, and then it slops down a bank, and then it flattens out, and it went over to the edge of the wood line. Well, I'm way back here, a couple of 300 yards or so, and I come over a rise. At the far end, on the right side, in that road, or where the road makes the curve, I see this guy step out. And this was January the 29th. Our deer season always went out the last day of January, which is the 31st. It was really bad cold. I was having to work and wasn't supposed to be working. And I was a little ticked because, I was wanting to hunt. I'm having to work.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying like hell to get done at work where I can at least hunt that evening. The first thought popped in my brain because I see this guy step out. That SOB's hunting, and I'm out here working.
Exactly.
About the time that thought kicked in my head, this thing comes out, and I'm seeing the side profile. It steps out like don't, and stops. Well, I'm looking total side, shoulder, arm, side of the head. He's sideways to me. About the time I see it step out, that's when I'm like, this dude, there's some dude hunting, I'm working, this sucks. This thing steps back and faces me, and I watch its legs bow out. I mean, it's like its legs do like whoomp. And I watch this son of a gun standing upright straight, go flat. And dude, it does this. Its arms go out, and it like flails out big, and it goes whoop. It's like its legs bow out and its arms bow out, and this whole thing look like you just compressed a pillow. Just whoop.
Wow.
Well, dude, it goes from massive to like probably a little bit, I would say maybe just a touch over 50% of its height. It probably lost, say, 45% of the height because it don't like just flatten completely out, but it bows and like it's looking at me.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going that way at 35, 40 mile an hour, and all this is happening. I mean, it's one of them deals of it's like in fast forward and slow motion all at the same time because you're trying to soak up so much of it. Well, as this thing, it turns and faces me, and I watch it compress. In my mind, this thing's going, oh shit, I'm caught. And I see it do this, and like it spins to go back into the woods. Like, uh-oh, I'm on hide. And it's by the time I see its weight shift back on the leg toward the woods, it just stops. And it turns back toward me. And it's like, oh, hell, I can make it. And I watch this thing pivot. It's like a basketball player. It pivots. And I watch this thing go from standing down here, road surface is up here. I watch this thing go boom, boom, and lands. I told people the road surface, the asphalt surface, the level's up here. You go down this slope at an angle, and then it flattens out, and this thing's standing over here. But it's down here, and the road's up here. It was 20-something feet, like we'll say 22, 23 feet, horizontal. We're not talking about the same height. We're talking about the road's here. This thing's feet is about a 5-foot elevation. It's down here. The road's up here 5 feet higher than where this thing left from. I watched that thing pivot back toward that road, and in one leap, just boom, and it lands on the asphalt. And it's going across that road, and it don't go straight across. It's kind of diagonal, angling back toward me. It's coming at an angle toward me. And when it got across the road, I watched it stride just get a little bit of exaggeration to what it was doing in the road. And it crosses this other big ditch. This other ditch is probably 14 feet or better. And it from the road surface to the dirt over here is probably a 2.5 foot elevation. and its stride just got a little bit bigger. Well, then it runs under a bush hog power line right away, because you got the road, and then there's power line that goes parallel with it. Where the curve is, that's where they put the power line. So the power line goes here, and it turns and goes, an angle for the curve. So there's a guy wire comes down to hold that pole for support. They had the anchor screwed to the ground and the cable up, or they'd bush hogged as tight as they could with their tractors, and it left a privet hedge right there coming out by that where the guy wire hit the ground. And that booger run within 8-10 feet of that privet hedge. So it's me, the privet hedge, and the booger ran on my side of the privet hedge. So the privet hedge was right behind him, just right there. So I took notice of how much the thing liked being the top of its head to the top of the privet hedge where it was bushed out. I'm going to say it liked maybe 18 inches, give or take a couple inches. We'll say 1.5 foot. All right. We went back later that evening, me and my dad, and we measured the privet hedge, and the privet hedge was 10 foot, like 2 or 10 foot 3 inches, a little over 10 feet. That thing liked about 1.5 foot being 10 feet tall. And going by that, from shoulder to shoulder, width-wise, that thing had to be as wide as a sheet of plywood, so I'll say it was 4 feet. From its sternum to its back was at least 2 feet, if not thicker.
Good Lord.
And dude, the thighs on this thing, they look like they were as big as my torso right here. They look like it was that big, the thighs. The biceps on the arms, they look like they was that big. I mean, it was massive. And dude, that thing come across, the sunlight was hitting it. This daylight, this is 11:30 in the morning, daytime. I could see it looked like it was camouflage, but it was changing. It was moving. And what it was it's running, the muscles was like expanding and contracting. Its thighs, you could see the muscles making the hair move, and it was making it. If you see an animal that's really a dark color and it's really well groomed and slick and its hair is oily or greasy and the sun hits it, you know how it shines?
Uh-huh.
That's the way this thing looked. It was that clean. It looked like it was groomed. And it was so slick and shiny that the sunlight was actually reflecting off the hair, and it made it look like it had silver spots. But the silver patches was like moving because the muscles and the arms was moving. But that thing, dude, excuse me, this is what's so weird. Everybody talks about him being stooped and, walking over like this, like we think of a caveman. The one that I saw when it ran across that road, its legs was moving so fast. It wasn't like his big giant strides. No, it wasn't. Nope. This thing's legs looked like they were in fast forward. It was like, and its body wasn't going like this. Its shoulders and head and stuff, it was just gliding.
Straight across?
Yes, sir. It just like it was just gliding. It wasn't bobbing like a person runs. No, it was just doing this. The legs from the waist down, it was like the legs just. And I told people, and I mean people that's watched me before, seen me before, so they've heard me say this. A Toyota Camry car, that's a pretty popular car. The roof of that Camry to the asphalt it's sitting on is going to be roughly about 5 feet, give or take an inch. Next time you're at Walmart, if you want to see how incredible it was to see what I saw, back up to a Camry car, 4-door Toyota Camry. Back up to your back touches it, and take 7 as long as steps as you can without falling. Long steps, 7 long steps. That's going to be about 3 foot apiece. That's 21 feet, give or take. Turn around and face that Camry car from that distance and ask yourself, Could I stand dead still right here and jump and my feet land on top of that car and me be running at like an Olympic sprinter pace or quicker? Now think about that.
I'm not even gonna try it.
No, but that's what I watched. I watched this thing spin from a dead stop, face me, and then whirl like I said, dude. It was like, oh shit, I'm caught, and I got to hide. Oh hell, I can make it. It turned around and I watched this thing launch up into the highway and run across that 2-lane paved road. And dude, after it ran past that privet hedge and under the power lines, over here, so road, power line, and then it was blackberry briars. And anybody that's got blackberry briars like we do here in Alabama, a blackberry briar thicket, them things will grow up like crazy, and as they grow, they'll go straight up, and then the bigger they get, they start falling over. And whichever way they happen to grow, it's just like they're woven. You know, this one will be locked in, and you know how the briars are not just pointed, they're like fish hooks. And so if anything catches them, so if you got one this one lays over that one, it can't slide because all the briars it's like they're matted together. Dude, there was a blackberry briar thicket that thing ran through. It never slowed down. It went through those briars like they weren't there. And I could see on that thing from about its waist up was clear. There was no briars. It's from its waist up was clear of the briars. Now I could still see its legs through all the briar stems and all that. I could see its legs still moving as it streaked through that. But from its waist up, it was nothing. There was no briars. One day, and I went back that evening and we measured the privet hedge. I walked over to that briar thicket, and dude, it looked like somebody had locked a throttle on a motorcycle and turned it loose, and it went through them briars. Briars broke. They was peeled out of the way, just like, you know, like where they were long and loud. It pulled them like this, and they were all laid in a kind of a line. Them things was broke, but that briar thicket was about right here on me, and I'm 6'1".
Man.
That's about so its waist would have hit me about right here. So, you know, I tell people that the first one I saw conservatively was 8.5 foot tall. Had to be at least 8.5 feet.
It's a big old boy.
Oh yeah, massive.
Or girl.
Dude,
can you imagine the strength that it takes to go through a set of briars like that? Because
exactly.
a normal human's going to walk up to it and just be stopped. That's like a locomotive going through there or something.
Yeah, but dude, it's like it didn't even slow it down, much less, you know, make it stop.
Yeah,
but
I can't even imagine the strength that it would take to do that. Can you imagine it hitting somebody? I mean, it would just be like pretty much tear you apart when it hit you.
You know, like I said, man, I grew up on a farm. I've lived out here in the country all my whole life. You know, I've been around a lot of livestock. What I try to tell people, you know, when I tell them, you know, this thing was 8.5 feet tall, I know in my mind that people get in their mind that we're talking about just some basketball player. You know, they're thinking Shaquille O'Neal. It's like, no. No, what I'm talking about would have been like if you took, he'd be like, you know, taller than Shaq, but 2 Shaqs wide. You know,
yeah.
It's just the girth, the bulk, the whole thing with these things is massive, massive. We're talking about something that's hands is bigger than damn catchers or than a baseball glove or a catcher's mitt. You know, its hands are massive. Some of the tracks that we found right here where I'm sitting, the biggest ones that we found has been right at 18 inches.
That gum.
Yeah.
Those big old specimens for sure.
Yeah, we found them. 14s. We found some. We pretty sure was a juvenile that was like 8.5, and it was three different sets of barefoot tracks together. It was like an 8.5 inch, a 14, and an 18 all together, like traveling together. So it was three.
Family unit.
We figured a small family unit there. Yeah. And where I'm talking about, White, is from my door right here. If I walk out that door, it's 75 yards to where we found his tracks.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, actually, I wasn't one found them. Misty's two aunts, Sherry and Donna. That's who found them. And then Kumbo found them. I don't remember. Kumbo found a set over there before Sherry and Donna, but I think Kumbo was here and he found the same tracks, which was like, 7 or 8 months later, but they were fresh when Sherry found them and Donna, and then they were fresh again when Kumbo found them. And I think that was probably the ones that stayed right here around my cabin a lot.
Yeah.
But I've had, I don't really know how many people I could count it up, but like seen them right here at my cabin. Kumbo's seen 2 here. He had one walk across my driveway when he was leaving one night. We done a podcast. He got ready to go, and I'm back off the porch, and he called me about a minute and a half after he left. He goes, I just seen a booger in your driveway. I'm like, what? He said, yeah, walked across the driveway right in front of my truck within about 50 feet. I seen one standing out here. Now, the last one I saw, the last booger I saw was right out here in my yard. And that son of a gun he was 9 foot or a little over. And I pulled up in the yard, and my Dodge 1500 Ram headlights on bright. And the thing was standing at the wood line somewhere about 50 feet from in front of my truck. And he was so black, it was like he was blending in like camo, but it was like the light was absorbent. And I finally realized what it was. I said, oh my God. And the thing took off running, and believe it or not, it ran within about 6 or 8 feet of my porch post and ran right down by my porch and went behind my cabin to go in the woods.
Wow.
But my wife saw one out here. She backed up to turn around to leave, her and my daughter, and she was watching her backup camera on her car. She backed up right to the woods, and I got some big pine trees. She said she looked over at that, like looked in the side mirror, and she looked back at the camera. And when she did, there was one standing about 12, 14 feet behind her car right by a tree, and said she stopped. And so when she did, it just stepped behind the tree and was gone.
Man.
She backed up within, say less than 15 feet of it with her car. Kumbo was sitting on the couch that I'm on. He was sitting right here, and I was in my recliner, had the door open, and one ran by my porch one night. And Roger, Squatchin Holler Roger, his son Peyton, within, I don't know, a few weeks, Peyton was sitting in the same place. I was sitting in the same place, and one done him the same way that it done Kumbo. Ran by my cabin, and he's got a glimpse of it go by the door. But one of the guys that works for me, he saw one out here. We were actually building onto my cabin. We had one walk up and was watching us work. Freaked him out so bad he didn't know what to even say. Me and Misty and Kumbo seen one out here one night. We could see the eyes, and it were just glowing. And the thing took off running. You could just see the silhouette run off, and you could run down the holler right here by me. And they came in. That was the same weekend. There was about 7 or 8 of us on my back porch. We kept seeing red eye shine. It came up behind my storage building. It came around to the other side, and then it threw a rock that nearly hit Misty's brother-in-law. He was sitting on my porch on the porch railing. Threw a rock at us. Peyton, Roger's son, they'd walked out here. There's an old log road that goes by my storage building, and Peyton heard something. He looked, and he seen just an upright black figure go over the crown of the hill toward the river leaving. They spooked it. So he saw something there. He said he didn't get a good look, but he said he knew he seen something. It was big. It was upright. But yeah, I've had several people that's right here. We've had a lot of encounters right where I'm sitting.
That's awesome but scary at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask you a quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
You were describing how black they are, and like it almost absorbed the light.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're out on the lake and we're hearing stuff, sounds like it's bipedal walking, and we should be able to shine our light right over there and see what we're hearing.
Yep.
Like one time it even stopped at the power line right away where it could have walked across. It just stopped, and we turn around and it goes back the other way. Do you think maybe that's what's happening to us? Is it's absorbing the light because they're so dark?
It may be. All I can tell you, let me tell you this. Ask Spencer Jameson about what we saw down at Mark Green's on Creepy Mountain about 3 years ago. There was about 7 or 8 of us down there at Creepy Mountain looking across their lake down there. They got a big pond / lake, whatever you call it. We got here and we had some creepy stuff happen down there, but we had there was about 5 of us had spotlights. I'm talking about 500,000 or 1 million candle power spotlights, because we kept hearing something on the other side of the lake. And where we was on the dam, and if you go across the lake, it was probably 150 yards or so. But when you hit that bank, it goes up a hill. And it's pretty steep. It's about like that. It's big timber. We'd been listening, and everybody was like, "We need to light it up. Let's light it up with some lights. Damn, we ought to be able to see something. Let's light it up. Let's shine the light on it." So it's like, all right, everybody get ready. We're gonna all throw the lights on it. And I'm talking about, all these spotlights, bling, 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 bling. And dude, we're shining. It's like daytime on that slope.
Yeah.
We're standing there trying to figure out what we're hearing. You could watch, we'll just say shadows. You'd see like it'd be a tree here and a tree here. You'd see from one, it'd go. And was it Carpenter that had the one where was he the one that had the one that it like went from tree to tree and you see its legs go across?
Not real sure, Greg.
I can't remember who's got that, but there's some footage where it'd be a Bigfoot or a booger go from tree to tree, and it's just like it leaps. It ain't like it runs, it's like it just leaps. And it goes choom, and then back and forth. We sit there and watched this figure, upright, jet black, and it wasn't really like it was almost like the absence of light, if that makes sense. It was like, it'd be like if you're looking at this picture right here and you took a eraser and went weak, and you see this erased part move. You know what I'm saying? It was like a void. And all I can tell you is that for me, it's so black and it absorbs the light. It's wild. I mean, I don't know how to explain it. But yeah, we witnessed that. There was a bunch of us saw that all together down there at Creepy. But Wyatt, the ones that I've saw, they've all been black. I'm talking about black as the ace of spades, as the old saying is. But now the one that Alan saw right here, which we're pretty sure was probably the alpha, it wasn't. It was more of I think he said it was a grayish color. And he said that it had, and this is what we studied on for a while. He said like on its hair, its chest and stuff, it'd have like a white spot. He said it'd be like a tuft of hair, it'd be white. And over here it'd be white. And I couldn't figure out what that was about. Till Misty, her head of knowledge, she said, it may have been where it got hurt or shot.
Yeah.
I went, what? She said, yes. And, they'd had dogs that be brown or something and they'd get hurt or cut, or when the hair, it'd heal up, but like where it's scarred, the hair will change color to be white. So we got to wondering if that was one that had been shot or something happened to it. And that's, I don't know. I have no clue.
Possibility.
But man, no, it just, it's been one hell of a ride for me since, now officially, I mean, we're 26 years into this. I'll be 52 years old in April. So basically half of my life I've dealt with this stuff.
Right. Man, you, like I said, you're a wealth of knowledge, and you're one of the people that I look up the most to in this field. I know we've been on here about an hour and a half, but is there any way that you could maybe tell the story where Alan brought his friend over and you guys had to? You don't have to if you don't want to, but I was just going to ask.
It'll take me an hour to tell that if I go into detail, but yeah, that's but no, let's put it like this. We'll do we'll do the short version of it. He brought that old boy, and he asked me. I didn't know the guy. I mean, Al had been knowing him for a few years, and this guy liked to hunt, and he knew that we'd killed a lot of deer, and he asked Alan about coming up here hunting. And Al said, "Do you care if I bring him?" I said, "Look, Dave, you can bring him if he's your buddy. I don't know the guy, but if you and him jihad and he's like brothers, bring him." Okay. He said, "I'm gonna bring him up there, like next weekend." I said, "Well, did you tell him?" He's cut his eyes. No. He knew what I was talking about. I said, "Look, dude, I'm not taking him over in them woods and get over and something happened and us know this and we didn't warn him. So you tell him what we have go on. If he still wants to go, he's more than welcome." Well, I'll tell him, but he probably ain't gonna believe it. I said, "Well, whether he believes it or not, it's on him. But I'm in good faith. I'm not gonna carry him over there and dump him out in the woods, me knowing what's there and him not. That ain't right. I'm not doing that. That'd be like if I carried you swimming and there's alligators in there and I know about it and you don't.
Yeah.
That'd be odds are you'd be pretty pissed if alligator popped up and tried to bite you. But anyway, that old boy shows up and I told him, I said, "Look, man," I said, "Alan said he told you about what we're dealing with." And this old boy just kind of half-assed grinned and kicked the dirt, and he said, "I don't believe in that stuff." I said, "Well, dude, look, it don't make a damn whether you believe it or not. They're real. They're out there. We've seen them. We're legit. Now, I ain't trying to spook you. I ain't scaring you. You don't see me smiling. I'm serious as cancer eating a foot a minute right now. You need to listen to what I'm telling you. If you want to go, if you'll listen to me, what I'm telling you is there, and you want to go hunting, you're gonna get to go hunting. I'm gonna put you in a good places I know of. It ain't gonna cost you a dime because you and Al's buddies, and Al's like my brother." "Yeah, man, I wanna hunt." I said, "Okay, all right." I said, "Did you Al said he told you to make sure you bring a handgun." "Yeah, I got my Glock pistol. I got a 40 cal Glock, but I don't need it. I mean, I got my rifle." "No, you ain't listening." I said, "Look, if you're a grown adult and you can handle a weapon, you carry your rifle, but you're gonna carry a handgun too, and I really want you to carry some extra ammo. Make sure you got an extra flashlight, some extra batteries. Carry extra ammo for every gun you got. You need to have a long gun and a large caliber handgun. That's just safety. That's the way I roll." "Well, I don't think I'll need it." I said, "But if you got," "Yeah, I got a couple extra mags for that Glock. I got 40 cal." So, okay. We got ready, went over to the woods, carried him in, put him in the lower stand. Al went to the upper stand. I went on down below this old boy, went down on the river. Everybody's safe. And I told him, I said, "Look, dude, when I come out, I'm going to come back up this road that I walked down. And look, it won't be black dark when I get here. It'll be still light enough for me to see enough to get around. We don't stay in here till it's black dark." "Well, man, I like hunting, so it's just absolute. No, you can do that somewhere. You don't do it here. It's their time when it gets black dark that we don't need to be in here. We need to be gone." Well, he kind of asking questions. I said, "Look, dude, we told you. We told you what's going on. Al told me that he told you." "Well, yeah, he told me, but I don't believe in that." "Okay. Just look, just don't shoot me when I come up. I'll kick a light on. Don't shoot me if you hear something. Don't, I didn't know this old boy how he's going to hunt. I know Al told me he was a, pretty good hunter, and he is after I got to know him. But anyway, we wind up, we didn't see nothing, didn't hear nothing. I went down there a couple of 300 yards from him, watched the riverbank because the lake was down low, and I could see 350 yards to the right and the left. So I'm covering 700 yards of deer crossing. Then nothing moved. I come back out, gather him, wait on him to get out of the stand, and he's packing up his Scooby-Doo book bag, I reckon, because he had all kind of prints and whatnot. He's getting it all loaded and comes down. I'm waiting, I'm looking, it's getting really dark. We need to be at the truck. So we had to hike this 200 or so yards back uphill to my truck. Now, this is the exact same field, mind you, that I was in when I heard those two samurai chattering back and forth. And for, for people that watch Dixie Cryptid, I mean, I love how Kim says it, Ghibli. That's Ghibli, good word for it. So we walk, hike it, hoof it back up to my truck. We get there. Alan is not there. I'm like, this ain't good. The boy's like, what do you mean? I said, Alan should have done been here. Oh, well, he's probably just staying in there. He's probably deer in the field or something. I said, no, look, if they had been deer in the field before it got dark like this, he would have run the deer off and come out. He's done it a bunch of times. He's not going to stay in these woods with it black dark like it is right now. I say black dark, but the moon was up a little bit, but we're no daylight left. It's dark in all practical intent purposes, but there is some moonlight starting to hit. I said, look, dude, we're going to have to go get him. Oh man, we'll just give him a few minutes. I said, no. I said, we're going to have to go get him. Well, dude is like taking off his jacket or whatever, and he's laid his rifle up on the hood of my truck and blah, 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 and he's doing this and that, and he's squaring all this stuff away. And I'm standing there with my back to the hood of my truck, and there's a cattle gate, an iron or steel cattle gate. My truck's parked, 3 feet, pulled up to the gate. I'm standing between the hood or the front bumper and the gate. Well, I'm looking over the gate down this road that goes out where Alan's at. On his side of the gate, there's a little clearance, probably about 30 feet, that I was going to originally park inside the gate, but the damn gate made so much racket. We just didn't open it, and I had plenty of parking on the outside, and nobody really messed with our stuff. So we'd just park and then walk around the end of the gate. It wasn't a fence. It was just trees. We put the gate to keep people from not or driving in and trespassing. So I'm just standing there. Well, here in a second, I hear it sounds like rocks. Now, this old road going out where they had loaded these logs, the loggers, they'll put what we call cat head rocks. It'll be the big old limestone rocks about big as a cat's head. And that's what this road was. And what it sounded like was like you had kicked one of those rocks and it was bouncing across the other rocks. And that's pretty much what happened. Alan hit one with his foot and it skipped it across the other ones. Well, I'm straining my eyes and I'm not turning on no light. And I'm standing there in the moon. There's a little bit of moonlight. But mind you, Al's in this cutover and this trail going out there, that road is 12 feet wide because it was a 6-foot bush hog in, 6-foot bush hog out. That's the width where it was, but it's like a wall, like a hallway with no roof.
Yeah.
Well, he comes down the little bit of a curve and I'm seeing something and I'm straining my eyes and squinting. I'm like, what in the hell is that? And I'm seeing something kind of a reddish orange and it's just glowing. And I'm like, I heard this rock and I'm focused on this and trying to listen and hear and see what's going on. I can't tell. Well, it gets a little closer. It gets a little closer. And he gets out there, I don't know, probably 20 yards. And he comes out of where the moonlight is actually shaded by the sides of this. As the road turns, the more the moonlight's going down where he's at. He's in more of the moonlight, and I can kind of see, his outline and stuff. Well, he's coming on. He's getting a little closer, but this glow, it's just a dim glow. What it is, he has got in his left hand, he's got a 2 AA mini mag light, and this wasn't LED technology. This was the regular incandescent bulb. Them things are like shining a birthday candle. But he's got it where the bezel is in his hand and the light's kind of up his arm, so he's shining the light through a crack in his fingers.
Right.
And where he's got a little sliver of light to see the ground, and the glow I'm seeing is where the light is shining through his flesh, and his hand is what's glowing. Well, I finally put this together, and I'm like, what the hell is he doing? I'm kind of relieved because, there's Al. There ain't nothing got him. He ain't missing 411. He ain't dead. There he is. Well, he's got the rifle sitting right there. I'm looking at it. It's a Browning 7mm Magnum A-bolt, bolt action Browning rifle. A dang nice rifle. When he died, it went to me. I'm looking at it. He had that gun holding it by the grip, and the barrel was pointing straight up. He's got it right here, holding it where it's pointing up. He's got this light right here. Well, he kind of closed his hand around the light, and he's looking at me, and he's kind of got this hand out, and I see him doing this. And
Right.
what he's telling me is, listen over here. Listen over here. And I just start doing like this, like, okay, I got you. We ain't saying nothing. He takes 2 or 3 steps. When he does, to my left, his right, where he was pointing, I hear a limb break. It wasn't no big limb, but it was a limb break. Well, he stands there for, I don't know, a few seconds or several seconds. He takes a couple more steps. So it's putting him closer to coming to me. When he'd walk, that thing would walk. When he'd stop, it'd stop. Well, old Al gets there. He's probably 30 feet, 25, 30 feet. He's right there at this opening. I'm on this side. He's on the other side. And I've done pulled my rifle. I had my rifle, like I had this arm folded and had my rifle laying right there. And I've just kind of got it, my arms holding it. And finally, I'm doing this. I'm like, like, come on, come on, come on, come on. Well, he takes off walking, and he's walking quick. Well, I just kind of bring my rifle and bring it up, and I'm holding it like this, kind of like down and ready. And I'm looking across top. Al's coming here. Well, he's here. That thing's coming over here, and I've got my rifle kind of pointed, looking down. I'm like, okay, if you pop out, I'm fixing to light you up. Al gets right there, and he gets within, like I could have reached out and touched Al's nose. The gates between us, I could have touched him. He said that SOB's followed me all the way from that stand. Now look,
Man.
it's 200 yards from the edge of the field to where we're at. It's about another probably 50 or 55 yards across the field to the stand at that area. He said the thing come in behind him, come round the field, got downwind of him, come back, and he thought it left. Now, this is the same thing it did to me on the time when it bluff charged me. Al waited till it got dark. He's trying to wait it out, trying to wait it out, trying to wait it out. He climbed down the very second that he touched the ground. That thing come running at him and run up there. Al got out in the field and froze, and the thing come up there. But now the way it done me, it was screaming and yelling and acting a fool. With him, it run up there and was just breaking limbs. And Al kept backing up, backing up, backing up. When he started slipping down that road trying to get away from it, the thing circled the field out of sight and was pacing him all the way back to where we were. I mean, this is going on a while. I mean, it took him a while to get out. I told him, I said, look, get yourself around the end of the gate and get right here beside me. Well, my truck's sitting there. I'm standing about in front of nearly the center of the hood. Al walks up kind of like right in front of, like if you was in the passenger seat, you would have been looking straight at Alan. Well, his buddy is over here on the side of the hood by the front passenger side tire. Al, he's just this thing, man, it come in there and god dang, I didn't know what was going to happen. He said, I gave up. He said, I knew it got dark. I knew if I stayed, said you'd come in there and for me. And I said, yeah, I would have. He said, well, hell, I thought it was gone. I was just going to get out of there. He said, then when I hit the ground, I didn't have no choice. I was done committed. I wasn't going to try to get back up in the stand because I had went to it to get up in the stand. He said, hell, I'm just trying to keep distance, but I couldn't get away from it. Well, as all this is going on, we're discussing this. His buddy's going, who is that? If y'all trying to scare me, this ain't funny. Well, this thing is, I know it's hearing us kind of see me whisper back and forth. This thing's across this 30-foot clearing. I'm talking about if you'd been standing at the bushes, I believe you could have poked the thing in the nose. It was just in the bushes enough to be concealed. Dude, this thing is growling. It's huffing. It's grunting. It's breaking shit. Now, it ain't throwing a full-blown fit, but it'd go, and then you'd hear a limb break, and you'd take a step or two. That wasn't doing like I've had them do where they'd work yourself into an absolute fit. and you'd hear it huff. You could hear it breathing. I mean, this thing sucking wind sounds like a racehorse. Sounds like it's asthma. And his buddies over there going, man, this is some bullshit. And by God, I don't know who that is. By God, this ain't funny. And me and Al both are going, shut up. Be quiet. Dude, he's like, what is that? I said, dude, we told you what's down here. Well, I don't believe in that. I said, what the hell you think that is? Well, man, if this is, y'all just pulling a joke on me, man. I said, dude, ain't nobody joking you for shit. And this thing is still getting worse and worse. And it's getting a little bit louder. And it's getting a little bit more aggressive. And it's to the point now where I've done had all this stuff happen. And, you know, I'm ready for things to come to an end. I'm like, hell, there's 3 of us here. We're all armed. You know, if you want to fight, we're going to throw down.
Right.
And I told Alan, I'll look at him, and I mean, I'm like looking at it. I'm looking at him. I'm cutting my eyes back and forth, trying to listen. And I'm whispering to him back and forth. I said, look, I said, I got 5 shells in this 30-06, and it's a semi-automatic Browning, and I'm down there surgical with it. I said, look, if that son of a gun steps out right there, now we're talking 30 feet. We took 30 feet. I said, if that son of a gun steps out right there, I'm going to try to put 5 in his pumpkin, which I'm talking about his head. I'm going to try to put 5 rounds in that son of a gun's head. And I said, do not fire a damn shot till you hear that 5th primer crack on my rifle. And when you hear number 5 go off, that's when you start up with that A-bolt. Well, I knew that A-bolt, he had 1 in the barrel and 3 more in the mag, so he's got 4 rounds. And I look at his buddy. I said, do you understand what I'm talking about? I said, I'm going to shoot 5 times. Alan's going to shoot 4, and then I want you to start shooting. You do not fire a damn shot till you hear number 9 shot go off. Then you take over. He goes, what? What? I said, dude, get your rifle. I said, where's it at? I unloaded it.
Oh,
I said, you unloaded your rifle? Well, I thought we was done hunting. I said, no, dude, we ain't done hunting. I said, where's your pistol? What's in this holster? I said, get it in your hand. I said, there again, look, dude. I'm going to shoot 5. Alan's going to shoot 4. And then you crank up with that 40 cal. I don't want all 3 of us to be standing here done run dry and this thing just do what it wants to. Wrong. I said, as soon as my gun goes dry, I'm either going to pull this 357 and go to work, or I'm going to be shoving 30-06 rounds back in this magazine, and I'm going to be ready to go. By the time you shoot 4 and he shoots like 12 or whatever he's got, I'm going to have 5 more rounds in my rifle, and I'm fixing to go back to work again. Well, this thing it's getting a little bit louder. It's getting a little bit more aggressive. And finally, I'd had enough of that shit. And I'm like, I've been dealing with this for several years now. I'm tired of being bullied. I'm tired of being harassed. I'm tired of being damn scared. I'm a damn redneck. I don't like being scared. That pisses me off. I look at Alan and I said, brother, I said, you ready? I'm fixing to do something. He said, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. I said, I'm going to try something. And I don't know what the hell's about to happen. One of the most prevalent sounds that I'd heard these things make for these several years was the whoop, W-H-O-O-P. I told him, I said, I'm fixing to see what this thing does. I'm going to give it a taste of its own medicine. I said, just be ready. Well, his buddy's still over. Who's got the keys? Give me the keys. God dang, we got to go. Give me the keys. Oh, shit, we need to leave. Me and Alice both like, shut up. Well, I leaned my head back, and as long and loud as I could muster, a whoop, W-H-O, whoop, and I'm talking about, I ain't going to do it in here anyway right now.
Yeah.
Because, dude, that thing is over there, and it's grumbling, and it's mumbling, and it ain't happy. And when I did that whoop, I swear to you, it was like you hit the mute button. It was like you hit the off switch. That thing went from grumbling and just mumbling and grumbling. I guess went huffing. It was like you turned it off. Just blip, it got quiet. And we're standing there, and I'm sitting there holding my rifle. I'm like, I'm fixing to go to work. If it's whatever it does, it's fixing to light. I'm gonna light it up right here. When I did that whoop, that thing shut up. It's like you counted down from about 3, like 3, 2, 1. In my mind, Al's mind, the other boy's mind, what I pictured and from what I could hear, it was like that thing done a 180-degree turn. It started walking as dead away from us as it could through that cutover. Bipedal, crunch, crunch, snap, pop, bang, crack, pop, bang, limbs breaking, saplings popping, vines ripping, bipedal walking, crunching leaves, rotten logs, sticks. We listened to this thing go at least 100 yards, and it never slowed down. Walked 100 yards, just chomp, tromp, tromp. And it sounds like you've got a log chain tied to something as big as a 4-wheeler, dragging it through there with a tractor. It's just breaking shit. Thing goes about 100 yards, stops. We're sitting there I know our mouths are just.
Right.
The thing gets quiet for several seconds. But now look, before hang on, cut the phone off. Anyway, when that thing got quiet, that's what I left out. When I done the whoop, the thing reminded me of an old man that you just told him that he couldn't have no banana pudding after he's just ate, or he's looked forward all week to getting a bowl of ice cream, and his wife said, "Look, your sugar's been high. You can't have no ice cream." When I done that whoop, that thing goes, just like, and then right then it was just silent. And then that's when it turned and walked off. That thing got out there about 100 yards and stopped, and it got quiet again. And it done that big long huff like I did, just like it was disgusted, just like, well, shit, just, and dude, when it do that, especially when it was less than about 30 feet or right at 30 feet, the noise I just made, you could feel it. I'm not feel it. It was so loud. But it was, and dude, I tell people that's how I kind of accidentally made peace with them. It was, they quit bluff charging. They quit being an a-hole. I mean, now they're still a-hole, but just not like it was. I mean, I don't trust them. But there for a long time, I thought, I'm about to die. I mean, I went through a lot of stuff, being bluff charged, stuff thrown at me, screamed at, yelled out, roared out. Have one of these things be about 100 feet from you and scream so loud it'll blur your vision. Yeah, that's when it gets bad. It's not just the point that you've got your rifle and you're trying to like, you turn loose your rifle and you're holding it and you're covering your ears because you're trying not to, for your eardrums to bust.
Exactly.
But you're looking at where the sound's coming from, and as the octave of the sound, the bellow, roar, scream, howl, when it would hit a certain spot in there, it was like my eyes is like it would blur, like it was vibrating so hard it would blur. And it was like taking a pair of binoculars and you're looking and everything's clear and you roll it and it goes out of focus and you bring it back. That's kind of what it was like when that sound was it would vibrate me so hard that as it ramped up and hit a higher note somewhere in the middle, it would vibrate my eyes so bad that my vision would blur for just a second or two and it would come back. And I mean, that's a special kind of hurt, dude. I mean, it's crazy. And I tell people, you're looking at an animal or at least something made out of meat, blood, and bone with extra abilities that can make a sound so loud naturally that, if you stood where a CSX locomotive is sitting on the tracks, if you walked up in front of it and reached out and stuck your finger to the actual horn on that locomotive, and then they, pulled the handle, that may be close to what I heard. But I mean, it's like crippling. It's so loud. I mean, it's amazing. And it's unreal when these things scream or when they can do it that loud. And it's just absolutely insane at what I've I've witnessed, dude. And this has been going on for about 26 years.
Those are some awesome encounters, dude. I know they're really scary. You've got some of the best out there for sure.
Well, and dude, here's the thing. I didn't go looking for them. They found me.
Exactly.
I don't never look for them here. Now look, I'll load up and I'll go with Coon Bow and Jimmy Hosmer and Troy Allen and all them boys, but we don't never go here because I don't want to take a chance of getting these riled back up and mad at me.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. But after that night when I called that one's bluff, it was absolutely like, well, if we stay hidden, we're gonna make him scared, which hell, me seeing them would have made me probably more scared than them being like Johnny Anonymous over here. So, but these things don't want to be seen, dude. And that's what's so crazy, so wild.
So if you see them, basically they're either letting you see them or you just get lucky occasionally, huh?
That's it, dude. Well, there's one thing about it. There's two things you got to have. You got to have an encounter. You got to have people, and you got to have boogers. I'll have to call them back. That call there, guys. For those of you that know, that would have been Mr. Milkman himself, Jeffrey Arrington, probably Bigfoot 911 Wendell, and Mr. Patrick Noble. And I'm not sure who else probably on there. Joe Parker may be on there tonight. That's our little group chat that we do a couple nights a week.
I got the privilege of being on that one night, but I think you'd already gotten off, or maybe you weren't on there that night. I got to be on there once.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
Yeah. We get on there and solve world problems sometimes.
Heck yeah.
Not really, but yeah, we get on there and do something. So, but dude, man, I hate that I've just ratchet y'all this whole time. I get started and it's hard for me to stop. My mind, as you can tell, my mind bounces around. I've had so much happen. It all runs together, and I've got a habit of, I try to spit out as much information as I can. But dude, this has consumed at least half of my life dealing with these things. And
man, you tell your stories just about as good or better than anybody else I've ever heard. So yeah, it didn't sound like you were bouncing around to me.
Well, I'm bad about chasing rabbits and going down rabbit holes. So, and one leads into the other. But man, I love for people to ask me questions, and if they want me to explain it in any other great detail, I'll try. But I always try to paint a picture where I want them to feel like they're seeing what I'm seeing. Because
I was watching the whole thing in my head.
When I talk about my encounters, man, when I think about them, it's like I'm still there. It's like I'm reliving it. And dude, that is the reason why that a lot of my stories that even now, dude, I mean, like everybody's wanting me, and I'll eventually tell it again pretty soon, maybe what we call my motorcycle story.
Yeah, I wasn't even going to ask that one, bud.
Dude, I mean, I'll tell it, but honestly, dude, it's I've been in things that dealing with law enforcement and fire department. We've dealt with death and dismemberment and scary situations, and been shot at a few times. I've seen a lot and done a lot, and people ain't always nice. But that deal right there, that was when that one was mad about that motorcycle. That was honestly when I thought I'm not going to make it. I mean, I thought because I didn't have a way out. I didn't have a way out, and that thing was so upset, and I was going to be the only thing that was going to be out of place. And I mean, I can't even put it in words. It's like it was just like nothing should be able to get that level of anger to be destroying the trees around it, the woods around it. I thought it was going to uproot. I thought it was going to uproot a dogwood tree. I'm talking about the base of that dogwood wouldn't like much being as big as a 5-gallon bucket.
Right.
And I thought it was going to pull the tree out of the ground. I watched the top of that tree, where that tree was standing up. We're talking about a tree probably 25 foot or taller. I watched the top go over here, and it'd go back, and it would go round and round, and it'd jerk it back and forth this way, and it was cracking and snapping. I watched it pull that tree back and forth. God, I don't know how many times it flopped that tree, and they'd turn it loose, and that tree would whoop and do this right here, and it'd stomp, and that thing would pace back and forth or either walk circles, and it was just like it was just breaking and slinging shit, just like you'd piss somebody off and they're like drunk or whatever, and they're just foaming mad. That's what it was, and I mean that's what people don't realize. I've seen these things do that, and they'll work yourself up into just a fit of anger, just rage. I mean, it start out they're grumbling and mumbling and they ain't happy, and then the longer they do it, the worse it gets, and the worse it gets, the longer they do it, and it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse, and it's absolutely psychotic. I mean, it's crazy how they do, and that's why people, oh, they're the friendly forest people. Well, they can be, but they can also make you come up gone.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's they the level of anger that I've witnessed out of these things. It's and like I said, my buddy Alan was there with me several times. We witnessed it together. But yeah, it's been life changing, dude. It really has. But like I said, that motorcycle story, I have to be in a mood to tell it, because usually when I tell it, it'll affect me. Seriously, it'll affect me for a few weeks.
Yeah, let's not worry about that, man. I'm just glad. I'm just happy that you came on here to tell your story, man. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, we'll tell it one day. But like I said, man, I appreciate you asking me to come on. I mean, I guess you know that I do have several people. I've had some really big name people want me to come on and talk, and I don't get me wrong, I like the guys. I think some of these folks has got really good podcasts, but I've done this to help people. That's the reason I finally came out and started talking, is I knew that there was a lot of people out there had a lot of questions like I did when I first started dealing with it. And, I'm a long way from being famous. Don't really want to be. But now I've had a lot of awesome people in my life. Made a lot of good friends and extended family even. But yeah, it's amazing how a lot of us has been like we've been drawn together. I can't explain it.
Yeah, I agree. I've met some of the best people I've ever met in this field. So.
Yep. Yeah. Well, dude, all I can tell you, if you want to hear more, you just get me back on here one of these days and we'll shoot the breeze some more.
You've got an open invitation. You can come back anytime you want to, buddy.
Well, maybe that'll be, we talked about something that somebody will find in worth listening to or entertaining tonight. And like I said, man, I didn't go looking for these things. They found me, and I'll tell you this. Talk to a lot of these people that's had these encounters. There's a lot of people that do have just one encounter, maybe. But look how many people, once they have an encounter, it's like they're marked, like they have a lot of encounters. And I can't, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I've just not got to see. Well, I had a partial, what I think was a sighting, and then I had a partial dogman sighting, but I haven't got to see a Bigfoot. I seen the silhouette of the dogman with a snout, and you could see when I looked into the eyes, it was evil. It just wasn't a good thing. I don't know what it was, but I seen something through a little bitty spot in the brush walk off like this. And I didn't get a good look. It was just basically a little black spot that you could see walk across the.
Well,
But I don't know if that was a Bigfoot.
Think about this, dude. That's what I tell people. I spent 9 years right in the middle of them. I mean, in the middle of them.
Yeah.
Before I ever saw one, and the first one I saw was about 2 miles down the road by accident. It crossed the road. They don't just walk out there and wave at you and go, "Hey, here I am. Look here." No,
Exactly.
no. Ask our brother Flat Rock. Ask old brother Ken Flat Rock. Ask him about coming down here. It's been about a couple of months ago, I guess, or so. He stopped by here to visit with me and wound up spent the night. He went out on my back porch right here and had one walk up within about 12 foot of him. He could hear it breathing. It was around the corner of my cabin. Yeah, and all these people been to Flat Rocks and had all these encounters and sightings and recorded all this stuff. Yeah, Flat Rock come in. He said, that scared the shit out of me. He said, I said, well, you deal with them at your house. He said, yeah, but mine don't come up that close to you. I said, mine do. Mine get right up close and personal.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, but it is, man. I've been blessed. People like Flat Rock, and of course Spencer and Misty. It's like siblings, extra siblings, and Roger's on board. Roger's like one of my best buddies, but it is, man. It just the group of people that we got. And I know some of the Bigfoot groups can't get along. They squabble and fight and fuss, and we ain't about none of that. Won't put up with it. We got a lot of people with good hearts, and they want to be outspoken to people, and we don't put up with people belittling each other or making fun of each other, or running them down on the shows. These shows you've seen people get on the show like live and be just screaming and acting the fool.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. I don't, and just because my encounter don't fit exactly the way your encounter was, that don't mean either one of us is making it up. That means that maybe it was something different.
Exactly.
I don't know. We'll just agree to disagree with some of these folks, but it is, man. We've met some good folks, and it take me 45 minutes to name some of the people. Look at DA and Robbie. My God, man. Just look at these folks that I feel like maybe I was forced into their life or they was drug into mine. I don't really know how it is. But man, but dude, I appreciate you having me on, and if you want to shut her down, we'll shut her down, and we'll talk soon.
Well, sounds good, man. If you want to hang out in the lobby for just a second, I'm going to take you out of here, and then I'll be back there with you in just a second.
All right, man.
Thank you again, buddy.
Hey,
do you want to plug the Woodwalker show real quick?
Yeah, man. Anybody that hadn't seen me before, a lot of you out there hadn't. I'm one of the trio. I'm the third wheel of the Woodwalkers. WODWALKERZ Woodwalkers. Look us up on YouTube. We've got, I don't know, probably pushing 300 episodes up. We've been doing it a little over 3 years, and it's myself, Spencer Jameson, and Misty Haynes. We just, we don't take ourselves serious. We just take the subject serious. So you get on there, and it's a whole lot of us being our normal, crazy, goofy selves. But we've been blessed with a lot of great people to talk to. So, and me and Misty do a show. We've been doing it. We got to start doing more of them. But it's under Not Owls, WOLZ, Not Owls 1313. So we'll have some more shows coming up with it pretty soon. Now that's off the we love to talk about it. Sky's the limit. Talk about anything. So it's an after show. Yep. So yeah, y'all come out and join us, and don't forget our brother Squatchin Holler Roger. He's wide open too. So, but well, all right, buddy. Well, get me out of here, and I'll talk to you backstage.
All right, sounds good, brother. I'll see you in just a minute. Well, guys, there you have it. I told you he was a legend. He ain't going to say that about himself, but he's got some of the best encounter stories I've ever heard, and I'm really grateful that he came on the show. Now, guys, if you've ever had an encounter and you would like to come on the show, just give us an email. We've got the banner rolling across the bottom at boonecountycryptids@gmail.com. And remember, guys, even if you don't think your encounter is significant, all encounters matter, because every encounter is a piece to the puzzle, and it takes all the pieces to put a puzzle together. And guys, just please keep our armed service members and our first responders in your thoughts and prayers. And until next time, guys, thanks for watching Boone County Cryptids.